Firstly, I would like to thank Mr. Trigun Gosavi, who has become a very dear friend of mine and who has graciously welcomed us on each trip we have made to this sacred land. It is an honor and privilege to be here and be given this opportunity to share perspectives on ancient wisdom. These teachings carry forward through centuries because they are timeless and eternal. And all we can do is just offer our perspectives on it. That is all. And it is this whole lineage of masters, especially the four siblings, Nivrittinath, Jnaneshwar, Sopandev, Muktabai, Gahininath, Lord Dattatreya, which has held the space in the sacred state of Maharashtra. I am particularly drawn to this spot, even though I have visited the others very often, because of the introduction of Muktabai here, the Adi Shakti. For me, it makes this spot unique. You see, it's incredible that a yogi called Changdev, who lived for 1,400 years, took his guru to be a teenage girl. That in itself should be sufficient for us to know the import of Muktabai. Someone who had achieved the highest siddhis ever possible took this young girl to be his guru. And to put things in context, what we are going to briefly speak about is her guidance to her brother, Jnaneshwar, through a few lines which are collectively known as Tati Che Abhang, the song of the door. The song of the door. So we are in a situation where we have the father who decides to take celibacy but comes back to the family and is therefore ostracized by society. The family of mother, father and the four children is treated extremely badly, to the extent that the father and mother say it is better we take our lives so that our children are spared the humility and are pitied by society. And so the mother and father decide to take their lives. And unfortunately, society treats the children even worse. Even worse, if that was possible, by not giving them food, turning them away. So you can imagine 4 siblings who are so young and impressionable being given such treatment by others. And it is when Jnaneshwar cannot handle it anymore that he locks himself up and says, I'm not coming out. And his sister tells him, open the door. Open the door. You are here for others. You are here to reform society and the way they think. Don't do this. Open the door. So, Sheetal is going to recite a few lines from this Tati Che Abhang, and we will briefly explore the very simple message of Advaita that is in here. Simplicity is the doorway to peace, not complex philosophies, theories, or any such thing. We are born simple. We acquire knowledge, we acquire conditioning and make things extremely complicated. This is the journey back to simplicity. So Sheetal, if you can recite some lines, please.
Jnaneshwara, 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 Majvari Kripakara, Tati Ugada, Jnaneshwara, Yogi Pavan Manacha, साहे अपराध जनाचा, विश्व रागे झाले वनही, संती सुखी भावे पानी, रागे भरावे कवनाशी, आपण ब्रह्म सर्वदेशी, ऐसी समदृष्टि करा, ताटी उगड़ा ज्ञानेश्वर, संत जेने भावे जग बोलने सहावे, तरीच अंगी थोरपण, जया नाही अभिमान, येथे उंचपण केले, घर अभिमान गेले, द्वैत टाकून शांती धरा, ताटी उघडा ज्ञानेश्वर, ताटी उघडा ज्ञानेश्वर.
So if we can take a couple of lines and I will elaborate on them step by step.
Jnaneshwara, 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 Majvari Kripakara, Tati Ugada Jnaneshwara, 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 Majvari Kripakara, Tati Ugada Jnaneshwara.
You see, this itself, open the door. Muktabai is not really concerned about the physical door. That is at the manifest level. She is referring to the door of consciousness. What we let in and what we let out. That is the door of consciousness. It begins with that. Open the door of consciousness means don't look at things as they appear to be. They appear to be one way. Our doors are closed, all of us, because our conditioning has made us see things in a certain way and we believe that to be the truth, so it's shut. And what what the divine feminine, what the mother goddess is saying is, open it, and now let's proceed. Next.
योगी पावन मनाचा साहे अपराध जनाचा. योगी पावन मनाचा साहे अपराध जनाचा.
So this means a yogi is pure of mind and forgives the mistake of others, or who condones the conduct of others. Now, how does a yogi do that? When he realizes that the same consciousness functions through everyone, saint or sinner, when everyone is a product of their conditioning from day one, their parents' worldview, their income group, geographical location, then the yogi realizes that the same consciousness is functioning through them too. So at the end of the day, they are not really individuals I'm perceiving, though they appear to be. They appear to be disrespectful to me, but deep down I know that the same consciousness that has shaped them in a certain way has shaped me in a certain way. So the yogi lives this understanding. He sees it. That is what Muktabai is saying. It is not about I forgive others. Who are you? It is the same consciousness functioning through everyone. So she is giving us, not really Jnaneshwar, she is telling us, this is the state of the yogi.
विश्व रागे झाले वनही संति सुखी भावे पानी. विश्व रागे झाले वनही संति सुखी भावे पानी.
Even if the world goes up in flames, saints, like cool water, have a calming presence. Their world went up in flames when their parents died, committed suicide, and society turned against these helpless children. Could there be a worse situation than that? And in that situation, this young girl is telling her brother that we are supposed to calm the angst. It's extreme situation. Couldn't be more extreme. To find compassion in this kind of a situation is quite impossible. But she constantly points to this, that the world will go up in flames, and the world is your world. The people you meet, the challenges you face tomorrow. It's going to create angst, but the yogi is of calm mind, presence, equanimity, and thus is able to row the boat through this river of life. So she is telling her brother, don't get too upset. This is the nature of people, this is the nature of the world, but you have to see it in this different light. It is too easy to get upset. It takes courage to see things in this light. That is why my teacher would say, this is the life courageous. When you see the hand of God behind everyone, especially those who are troubling you and tormenting you, then we know where you stand. In Sufism, that's called walking the road of fire. It is a challenging life, and life will keep challenging us till our lessons are learnt. Life will keep challenging us in relationships till we learn that the person who gives us gifts and the person who abuses us, both of them represent the one source. Then, when we understand this, we have risen above these opposites. Till then, we will be taught this lesson.
रागे भरावे कवनाशी आपन ब्रह्म सर्वदेशी. रागे भरावे कवनाशी आपन ब्रह्म सर्वदेशी.
With whom can one get angry when everything, including you, is Brahman? Wherever you go, whoever you meet, every single being is Brahman. You see, I think Muktabai tells a brother that if by mistake you bite your tongue, will you knock out your teeth? Or if one hand of yours scratches the other and it bleeds, will you cut off the hand which has scratched the other hand? So this, what she is pointing to, is the unity consciousness which is behind the appearance. But because we live in this world of duality where we see forms and objects, we get lost in the appearance and we take that to be the reality. See, my mother's guru was a judge of the Bombay High Court. His name was Justice Dudat. And when we would go to his home once a week for the group meditations there, one of his earlier devotees told us that sometimes he had to pass very harsh judgments. And after he did so, he would get up from his chair and go and hug the person against whom the judgment was passed. That I found very touching. Then once in his satsangs, at the end of the satsang, the whole queue was there of people touching his feet. And I overheard someone, they must have asked for some clarification on a personal issue and he must have clarified it. So that person said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And he replied saying, "Thanking me is like your left hand thanking your right hand." So when we see this in our own lives, that the person troubling us, the person pushing our buttons, the person we are tending to judge the most, is not any different from the ones we love the most, because they are shaped by the same God in a different way. Then we find we are no longer reacting unconsciously. We are now responding. We are responding because we are no longer pointing a finger at an individual doing something to us. Earlier there was blame and condemnation. How dare you say this to me? How dare you do this to me? Now that dynamic shifts. Now I have seen it for what it is. If I truly understand it is the one source doing all the doership, there is no individual doing it. So I will find my words start changing. The harsh words I was using now transform to something little different, little gentler. Or I find if I still react like I used to, because there's years of conditioning behind me, I am no longer involved in the situation like I used to be. that involvement ends. I realize, my God, the same conditioning came up. That is what starts happening. That is what she is pointing to. The Shakti is pointing to this, that you have got lost in the game of blame and condemnation and hatred and malice. If you see everyone as Brahman, which is the reality, then that is honoring the one source consciousness behind the forms. So you may find that suddenly, one day, the person who is troubling you the most, you're just seeing this person say something to you and you feel compassion for that person. That for this person to use such harsh words against me, what suffering they must have seen in their childhood, what must have gone through their lives, we don't know. So you are no longer having your defenses up in such relationships. You're being more vulnerable, more open, non-reactive, and seeing that this is all God's play, the play of relationships. This is about relationships. For them, very pertinent, because there's society, there's traditional society, and they have a role to play for centuries to show society the light. So that is what she is telling him. These are the fundamentals. The fundamental polarity in duality is me and the other, not me versus the other. The focus of Tati Che Abhang is the fundamental polarity in duality.
ऐसी समदृष्टि करा ताटी उगड़ा ज्ञानेश्वरा. ऐसी समदृष्टि करा ताटी उगड़ा ज्ञानेश्वरा.
So again, what Muktabai refers to is seeing with an even vision. Seeing with an even vision. What we tend to do is, we cherish our loved ones and we cherish those who buy us expensive gifts. We have already created compartments and segments of people who are closest to us, somewhere in between, and those who are furthest away and those we don't like. That is not seeing with an even vision. That is not living their teachings. That is the me and my identifications, and those who love me are dearest to me. Those who don't aren't. That is not the vision of the sage. The sage is not concerned whether you're a relative or a stranger. The sage is not concerned whether you give a gift or you don't give a gift. Because in even vision, the sage is not seeing individuals. When the door of consciousness is open, you are not seeing individuals anymore. You are seeing expressions of the divine. Then who will you judge? How do you know someone who you think is close to you is maybe close to you for the wrong reasons? How do you know? So this quality of even vision in life, in the day, whether I meet a beggar on the road or a colleague at the office or a family member, when this is maintained, I find I'm in a state of total acceptance of people the way God has made them, without any desire to change them, because I know God knows best. If I can live with this even vision, I am living like a yogi. Someone asked the American mystic Joel Goldsmith. He became very popular in his times as a healer. So people who were healed would send him a lot of gifts. So he was asked, how do you feel? You must be feeling great receiving so many gifts. He said, yes, for sure. But I have the full understanding that they are not giving me the gift, they are giving God the gift. And when I am thanking them, I am not thanking them as individuals, but I am thanking God. That is called even vision. So a sage will not take sides in that sense. The sage has a degree of neutrality. The sage will still love the one who troubles the sage. He may take steps to see if there is harm, he will avoid it. Obviously, we are in the human realm. It happened to my teacher once. He had a disciple early on who turned abusive in the middle of it all. And my teacher just kept quiet. Others would say he should be banned from the satsang. Why are they allowing him? He was not banned. And one fine day he came back and fell at the feet of the teacher. It didn't make a difference to the teacher. Whether he was loved, whether he was abused, loved back, it was neutrality. He was not stuck in this game in which we are stuck.
संत जेने भावे जग बोलने सहावे. संत जेने भावे जग बोलने सहावे.
Means let people or the world say what they have to say. It is out of ignorance. Why? Because people by and large are mired in separation. They believe we all are the doers of our actions. And the whole Bhagavad Gita is only this point where Krishna says the ego deluded thinks I am the doer and so are others. The world is lost in doership. The one who is on the spiritual journey, on the spiritual path, the eyes have been opened. That the only primal doer is God. So that one is no longer seeing through the eyes of duality, the physical eyes. That one has started seeing through the eye of wisdom, the eye of singularity. So that is what she is telling her brother. The one who is a saint can be equanimous with the ignorance in the world. The world is ignorant. That is its nature. But as Krishna says, only a few out of millions and millions have been shown the path. And out of those few, very few walk it. So she is saying, if we are here for a purpose, if we are here to open the eyes of society, that society which has abused and mistreated us, we need this way of seeing. That this is the nature of the world, the nature of people who are troubling us. It is not them doing it as such. They have been conditioned that way. Can you imagine this girl the degree of compassion to even recite these lines. For me, it's astounding. It's really mind-boggling. It reminds me of another form of Shakti in France, Joan of Arc, who as a young teenage girl was leading the French army in battle. And because she had heard the voice of God, the voice of Archangel Michael, who told her, here's a sword lying in so-and-so church, go, you will find it there, pick it up and go to the Dauphin and say you're here to lead. So on blind faith, this girl does that. And at the end of the day, because of the corrupt world and the politics in it, she is sold to the British, and then she is tried for heresy, and the verdict is passed to be burnt at the stake. Teenage girl. And when she is on the funeral pyre, when the Shakti is on the funeral pyre, she is asking God, I followed what you told me to do, and this is the result. She tells Archangel Michael, you told me to pick this sword up, and you're having me cooked on this fire. But then the final realization comes, not my will, but yours be done. So when we accept people for the way God has created them, we accept nothing can happen in our lives unless it is the will of God, we find we are equanimous and at peace. These are the pointers which the Divine Mother Goddess is telling her own children.
तरीच अंगी थोरपण जाया नाही अभिमान. तरीच अंगी थोरपण जया nahi abhiman.
An evolved being doesn't carry any pride and superiority. You see, pride would be if I consider myself the doer of my actions. Let's say I have a business or a job and I get a good increment or I get a good contract. Now, pleasure will certainly arise. I'm a human being, I'll feel happy. But if I understand that God gave me a set of skill sets, circumstances, people, which resulted in success, that pleasure which arises naturally will not be accompanied by pride and arrogance, because I know deep down I'm not the doer of the action. Some people are not destined for success, some people are destined for success. So as far as the sage is concerned, there's no question of pride and arrogance. If there is pride and arrogance, that person is considering themselves the doer of their actions, which is suffering. This sense of superiority, I know better. This is a very dangerous trap because I have seen it. More so on the spiritual path. You think you know better than others. And then you start advising others without being asked for advice. If there's pride and arrogance, its foundation is suffering. Because when the opposite happens, if there's a failure, there will be guilt and shame because I consider myself the doer of the action. I'm living in this polarity of pride and arrogance, guilt and shame. So if there's a failure and I have the understanding, of course there will be pain. Who wants a result of failure? It's human nature to have pain. But I will not blame myself. I'll know I tried my best. It wasn't meant to be in this case. So there is no guilt and shame because I know God is behind it all. I have just given the labels of success and failure to the outcome. That's all I have done. Everything is as it is. So there's no question of pride and arrogance as far as the sage is concerned. So beautiful, I tell you. Today we are lost in very big words on the spiritual path. States of samadhi and abiding in being and the self and this and that is fine. But it takes a young girl to say in daily living, in interactions, if you just live this way, understand what it is about, that is all that is needed.
ये थे उंचपन केले घर अभिमान गेले. ये थे उंचपन केले घर अभिमान गेले.
So this reiterates what we just said about when arrogance creeps in, the house gets destroyed. Whenever you feel that your way is the right way, it may be so for you. But when you try to tell others that what I am telling you is the right way, there is a problem. Because firstly, you're not leaving them to their destiny and their blueprint. What God has in store for them. Yes, you have their well-being at heart, so you express yourself, but then you leave it. If you find yourself hammering away your point of view on the other, there's a problem there. Because then you feel you know God's will. That is a problem. So are we doing that to people in our lives? Are we telling people, I know what's best for you? How do you know? A parent telling a child is a different thing. The child consciousness is not developed yet. So it's a guide, a guidance. But we find we are telling it to people in our lives. That is arrogance. That is pride. And that sets up the fall of the house. The foundation, the bricks are all based on pride and arrogance. So this teaching brings in humility. Humble enough to know there is no right and wrong. Ultimately, there is no right and wrong. They are only points of view. I don't know, recently I read something quite, it took me aback also, where there was an alcoholic in the family. They tried everything, rehab and this and that, and nothing worked. So there were no options left. And then the wife told the husband, I would like to thank you for being an alcoholic. And that was like a Shaktipat, a total shattering, because the husband was berated, abused, looked down upon, made to feel bad, guilty, what's wrong with you, this, that, went through that whole process. Nothing worked. Because he's not the doer. If he was, he would have been able to stop being an alcoholic. People miss this point. He was helpless. And there was this turnaround that maybe we all had to learn something from you being an alcoholic. And I would like to thank you. Unheard of. It woke up everyone from the dream. And this is what it is about. Wake up from this dream of me versus the other. Because what she is saying in essence is you're teaching your own self, because the others are not apart from you. They appear to be.
द्वैत टाकून शांती धरा ताटी उघडा ज्ञानेश्वरा. द्वैत टाकून शांती धरा ताटी उघडा ज्ञानेश्वरा.
So she is saying, let's drop this idea of duality. Let's end this now. This me versus the other has gone on for too long, since one's birth. And when this is dropped, what is embraced is peace. Isn't that the word? Shanti. That my teacher would say is the most underrated word. Because peace sounds too bland. Who wants peace? This gift of peace, you see, it's not alluring, it's not colorful, it's not got bows and ribbons all over it. And she, in this line, says this polarity of me versus the other. You see, as Joel Goldsmith would say, for him, his expression was different. He said, give up the belief in two powers. Give up the belief in two powers. In your life, there is no power apart from God. How can there be? If there was a power apart from God, that means someone else created that power, which would mean God is not omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. Is it possible? So this power we give, that there is a function, there's an element apart from God which is troubling us and against which I should defend myself, has to be given up. It is given up with the total acceptance of the will of God. Then I am no longer functioning in this framework. The me versus the other has healed back to me and the other. I have to relate with people in life. I have to deal with them, me and the other. But I don't have to defend myself all the time. I don't have to protect myself all the time. I don't have to build walls of separation all the time, which I have been doing, because I think they are the doers of their actions. And when I realize they are not, those walls start crumbling down. And then I will find that the person I don't get along with, I surprise myself by telling that person, hey, we don't get along, but let's go and have a cup of tea. Because I see things in you which I really appreciate. This thing we don't get along on. So this Dvait is where we get trapped, and then it's like a tennis match. We are playing tennis matches with people in our lives all the time, trying to hit the ball back in their court. And what she is saying, when you close the doors, you are doing that only. So open the door, put your tennis racket down. This is not a game of two, this is the game of one. This is not the game of two. It appears to be, certainly, especially in moments where you are challenged by others, that appearance is very strong. That is where your learning is. Otherwise, life is too simple. It is the game of one, playing with itself. And everyone who's a challenge to you, a challenge to your point of view, maybe an opinion about something, becomes your teacher, because they are teaching you that it's all right if someone has a point of view other than yours. No matter how absurd it may be, it's all right. See, and the four siblings who represent Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, and Adi Shakti. Why so young? Because that was the uncorrupted consciousness. They represent that. And it takes the compassion of the only sister amongst the siblings. That is the compassion of Shakti. She has to tell none other than Jnaneshwar. She has to be the one who becomes the guru of Changdev, not the others. Jnaneshwar tells Changdev, she is your guru. Nisargadatta Maharaj said, the door that lets you in is the door that lets you out. And I am that. The door that lets you in is the door that lets you out. And every day we are standing at that door, morning to night. What are we letting into our consciousness and letting out of our consciousness? Thank you.